Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire and happy Friday as we get you ready for a big Memorial Day weekend here on SportsGrid. We got plenty to cover here on today's show. We'll go over the latest of the National Basketball Association. The Western Conference Finals could be wrapping up pretty soon here if things go the way that they have this week. In addition, we could say the same for the Eastern Conference Finals and the National Hockey League. Very anticlimactic. The latest on Major League Baseball. We'll break down the NBA with Carlin Gay. We'll also bring in Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. Make sure we get you caught up on everything in the world of sports wagering as well. Some news from the college football playoff, no doubt. We'll get to that too. All right, so let's get started here. Could this be a blowout in the Western Conference Finals? It does appear that the Oklahoma City Thunder are closing in on the NBA Finals here. I mean, basically having to only win 2 of the next 5 games. I don't know that they've gone 2-3 at any stretch during the season. They beat the Timberwolves 118-103. They're now up 2-0 in the series, as I mentioned. If they win one game in Minnesota, this thing is probably over. Same story as Game 1. The Thunder outscored the Timberwolves 35-21 in the third quarter. This is when Oklahoma City seems to be at its best in the second half. And, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 38 points. He's now getting a lot of national attention for all these free throws that he's taking, 13 of 15 from the field, as SGA is just, certainly going to the hoop and getting fouled constantly, gets the free throws. 8 assists as well. Not much more to say about this series. SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the NBA's MVP, says everything seems to be clicking right now and confidence is high.
Yeah, it felt really good. I feel like my emotions were so high that I was a little bit tired out there, especially to start. I was a little too juiced up. But special moment. I'm happy we won so I can really enjoy the last couple of days and soak it all up. That really helps. But shout out to the team. Played well again tonight and head to Minnesota up 2-0.
Yeah, I thought we did that in the first half too. I thought on a half where we shot 4 for 20 from 3 to have 58 points and to kind of pace offensively the way we did it, I think it speaks to the blend we were able to find. It felt like we were very confident and, getting to good spots on the floor, understanding, a continued understanding of how to attack this team. And then we did it again in the fourth. They threw different stuff at us. They were pretty aggressive on the ball. I thought our spacing and attacks were very good. We shot the right shots, made the right passes. So we can learn from it. It's a different look, again, that we can improve from. But I thought, by and large, offensively, we did a good job tonight.
Timberwolves seemingly not deflated, but don't have the recipe to figure out how to stay in games in the second half. Certainly, that's what head coach Chris Finch is trying to figure out. He talked about the disappointing result after the game.
Chris, just where did you see things get away in the third quarter there?
Yeah, I thought, again, we didn't close the half very well. I thought if we closed the half better, then we don't put ourselves on such a razor edge in the third. Excuse me. We only had 6 turnovers at halftime. We had a few more in the third quarter. Missed some shots. Didn't finish at the basket, and then led to a bunch of stuff in early attack mode for them.
I don't know. I gotta look at the film. I don't want to say. We had a stretch there towards the end where I felt like we turned it over too much. But I gotta look. I think they really got the lead in the end, if I'm not mistaken. But I gotta look. I'll figure it out.
What is it about that team? Both third quarters, once they got going downhill, it was just so hard to stop.
It just seems typically every time we play them this year, that's usually when they turn up their pressure. So, we got to meet their aggression.
I think right now the Timberwolves need to change their approach. There's just nothing seems to be working. I know they're keeping the games close. Change of approach going on in college football. We've got a new look to the college football playoff. Same amount of teams, okay? So let's be clear on that. But now the top 4 seeds will get first-round byes regardless if they won a conference title. So that's a switch, basically an ode to Boise State a year ago, it seems like. Conference champions still get auto bids, but are now seeding based on the ranking by the college football playoff. Not the record, the ranking. And that also means that Notre Dame can now get a bye, even though they're not in a conference. Okay, so the Eastern Conference Finals in the National Hockey League seems to be going the way of the Florida Panthers. Why? Because they went on the road against Carolina, and they won both games. That's it. They beat the Hurricanes 5-0. They're up 2-0 in the series. They're headed back to Sunrise tomorrow. They need to win 2 games next 5, and having a number of games coming up at home too. So it looks like the Panthers could be headed back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the second consecutive season. Sam Bennett had 2 goals and an assist. The Hurricanes just basically could not get shots off, and through 2 periods, they had just 7. Here's head coach Paul Maurice on the Panthers, looking at the stat sheet, seeing how many shots they fired off, and seemingly it didn't make much of a difference.
The start's good. I don't know what the shots were. I looked up at one point toward the end of the first, it was 5-3. So it didn't feel like that to me, like every puck that goes to the net you worry about or you're hopeful maybe at the other end.
Yeah, Paul, with the Bennett line seemed to be really buzzing out there. Just what did you like about the way that the 3 of them were tonight?
I thought you saw a really veteran game out of those guys because a lot of what we gave up in game 1, they were on the ice for. As you would understand, that's a really high-end line they're playing against, but they gave up an awful lot on the rush. Mostly out of aggressiveness and trying almost too hard, and they settled their game a bit and let the forechecker be aggressive and kind of read off each other maybe almost a little more relaxed in the game. I know they were going, so it felt like they had pressure, but they actually played a little bit more of a patient game in the first period. I got rewarded for it, but they were very, very good tonight.
In Major League Baseball, tonight's a pretty big night for the Atlanta Braves. Ronald Acuna Jr. will play his first game of the season off rehab, so he's back for the Braves. Now, in terms of what happened last night, my gosh, are the A's having a hard time lately? They've lost 9 games in a row. So promising is they exited the month of April. It's gone the other way completely. By the way, Taylor Ward is absolutely on fire for the Angels, among the home run leaders in Major League Baseball right now. A grand slam again. The Angels are red hot. They beat the A's 10-5 for their 7th straight win. Mark Kotsay on the flip side of the A's says right now they'd like to break out of this long slump.
Yeah, we're in it right now. Definitely. The outing we got by Severino was what we needed. This one hurts just because, he threw the ball so good today. And for him to walk off the mound in the 6th, turn the ball over to Holman, who's been great, like you talk about, all season, and just some mislocation, a ball that he was trying to go down and away to Turner Ward to get a ball on the ground and runs back middle and it's over the fence. So next thing you know, you're down again. And, we continue to try to push. You get to that point in the game where you have it set up that you think you're going to be able to use Mason Miller for 2 innings, and push him and get out of this thing. And we just couldn't get it there.
Meanwhile, the San Diego Padres are inventing new ways to lose. Can't seem to score. Now get walked off yesterday. The Blue Jays win 7-6. San Diego has lost 6 games in a row. Meanwhile, Ranger Suarez pitching well for Philly. They face the Rockies. It's kind of like having a bye these days, and I hate to say it, but the Rockies have been the worst team in baseball in 100 years through 50 games. 8-42 on the season. That is right, folks. 8 wins. 42 losses. Meanwhile, Carlos Rodon and the Yankees blank the Rangers 1-0. They sweep the 3-game series. Rodon's having a great year. Yankees seemingly have a couple of really strong pitchers as they head to the summer. Here's Carlos Rodon on his performance.
JC was great behind the plate. Just got on the roll there, I think, after the 2nd or 3rd. And then defensively, we had some good plays. Peraza at 3rd. The long skip throw, ball, to his backhand, and he made some other plays. And then outfield, Cody covering some ground. Jorbert with the big homer, first one for him. So that's a big deal. And we win 1-0 because the bullpen shuts it down. So great win.
You mentioned that Bellinger catch there in the 4th inning. Were you surprised that he got to that ball?
The ball in the gap, yeah. It was a changeup up. It was Heim, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Ball hit to right center. Had to cover some ground. He was running around a lot today, so he made a lot of plays for me.
We'll have a preview of the NBA's Eastern Conference Finals coming up next. Carlin Gay from Sporting News joins us. We'll be right back.
We salute the brave and courageous women and men serving in the United States military, protecting our freedom. Please take time this Memorial Day weekend to honor the memory and sacrifice of our military veterans and their loving families, and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in their service to our nation.
Boston knew they were in trouble, Tom, but the most important thing is they fed off of their crowd, and in that third quarter, when Boston could have made a run, the Knicks just put that one last run together to put the game away.
So it was good to see them, to round this all together, good to see them finally put all the pieces in place to close out the series and say, yes, we are playing our best basketball, because that's what they're going to need against the Pacers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
If you believe he should be in the Hall of Fame, there's, let's let him wait another 2 years. Wait, he's already dead at this point. Like, what are you waiting for? Another 2 to 3 years. He's either in or he's out. And sometimes you look at that too, Tom, it's like you can't tell, the history of Major League Baseball without Pete Rose.
Frankly, the writers have some standard that they want to hold players to, which seems to fluctuate on a player-to-player basis. So he should be in the Hall of Fame, but I'm not sure how quickly he'll get there.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. If you watch the Timberwolves play Oklahoma City during the regular season, then you had some optimism that this could be a 7-game series. I'm not sure that optimism is still out there. Let's check in with Carlin Gay of Sporting News. Is the Thunder now up 2-0 in the best-of-7 series? And, Carlin, I give credit to Minnesota because they seemingly have been giant killers. I don't think the season is over for them. I do think they're going to win a game in Minnesota, but I guess my concern here is that so few adjustments are being made from game 1 to game 2. It felt like the same game, and aren't they gonna have to just throw caution to the wind in game 3 and say, hey, look, what we're doing is simply not working?
Yeah, it's been tough. It's been tough. And I will say they tried to make adjustments, but the Thunder were so good that it felt like none were made. Like they tried to get Anthony Edwards easier looks at the basket in game 2 than he had in game 1. He took a lot of shots from the perimeter in game 1. They obviously didn't fall. They get blown out. Game 2, back to the basket for Anthony Edwards, so it's a little harder for teams to double team that way. He could see that clearly, make the open pass. His teammates just weren't making shots. In the first quarter of game number 1, and it feels like he can't make a basket in the last 6 quarters. So, they just have to make some shots and also get some easier looks for both of their stars, in Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards. And that's easier said than done because the Thunder are the best defensive team in the league. They have a couple of guys on the all-defensive team that just came out yesterday. They probably could have had more guys on the all-defensive team, to be honest with you. You probably could have 5 of the Thunder players on the all-defensive team in the league. And their best defensive player didn't even make that team, in Alex Caruso. So it is like a torture chamber, offensively for the Minnesota Timberwolves right now. The Thunder have just been phenomenal, and they're playing their style of game. Now, I will say, though, for Minnesota, the series doesn't start until you lose a home game, right? Like, that's the old adage. So they haven't lost the home game yet, and we get one in game 3. They get to go back, refresh, get their own rims, and maybe they could start making some shots because they're going to need to do so.
Yeah, and they'll be dogs in the next game. Not a lot, but they'll be dogs. So let me ask you this, Carlin, because you've been watching the NBA a long time. I have too. The average fan, I think, knows who Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is, but he is not one of the more popular players in the league. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Now they're going to get to learn a lot about him when they see him play in the West Finals and then probably, I would say, in the Finals. So he had 38 points yesterday. Now, you and I know in watching the league that this guy takes more free throws, and by the way, makes more free throws than anybody else in the league. I don't know. Something tells me, Carlin, I have a feeling that people are going to feel like he's a boring watch in the finals. And we're going to start hearing about, hey, is this great basketball to watch just a guy at the free throw line constantly? And I think it's an unfair criticism. You got to score in the ways that you're just being given to score, and he's attacks the rim constantly. But I feel like that's coming in the finals. I feel like everyone is going to go, oh, they're boring. This guy just takes a million free throws. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here. That's the sense that I'm starting to get a little bit watching these games.
Yeah, I mean, I think those same people that are going to be complaining about Shea and the style of play probably complain about the Boston Celtics and the style of play that they had when they won the championship last year. They're shooting too many threes. This is boring to watch. I want to see something else. Well, guess what? Is the way that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander plays. He took 2 threes last night, made one of them, and had 38 points. Everything he did was inside the arc. So for all those people say, hey, take it to the basket, let's see a mid-range game that's supposedly dead. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's keeping that alive. Oh, by the way, while he's getting to the free throw line. And the reason why he's getting to the free throw line is because he drives more than anyone else in the game, right? Like if you are going to constantly put pressure on the rim, it's likely that you're going to get hit, and it's likely that the whistle's going to get blown. He's just playing the game the way that he should and the way that he can, and he's dominating it in the way he's doing it. So deserving MVP in my opinion. I think it could have went either way. Honestly, Jokic had an incredible year, but at some point, if I had to vote, I would have voted for Shea because at some point you have to reward winning. And the Thunder were by far the best team in the NBA. And they're proving that right now in the postseason. And Shea is the best player on that team. So he was deserving of MVP. And to come off an MVP trophy lift with 38 points, pretty impressive.
Yeah, reminds me a lot of Dwayne Wade early on in his career, just constantly at the free throw line. But no one was complaining because he played with Shaq and then he played with LeBron, so no one's sitting there. But he's like a guy. I mean, look, they have other good players, but really, he is the focal point of that team. Real quick, the odds for the series. I'm not even going to ask you about him, Carlin, but we made a nice graphic, so we're going to show it. There really isn't anything bettable here unless you love Minnesota. Let's just be honest. Nothing on this board here looks good unless you can make some sort of conviction for the Timberwolves. Over 5.5 games, maybe at plus 184. But a lot would have to happen for that as well. So let's just move on to the East. Okay, so the Knicks are 6-point favorites tonight. That's up a half from the last game. The total is 226 in this one. I would expect the Knicks to better and maybe win. But as we've talked about, I cannot get off Indiana here. I still think that is the play plus the points. And I do think inevitably they're going to head to the NBA Finals here. But I guess the question is twofold: can the Knicks even win this? And can you make a case for the Knicks covering? I can't.
I think the Knicks can win the game. I don't know if they can cover just because of the style of play that Indiana plays with. They play at such a pace. They just play faster than anyone the Knicks have seen in the postseason so far. Detroit was a half-court team. Boston took a lot of threes, but they didn't run up and down. They were more of a half-court team that allowed the Knicks to get back and set their defense, and Indiana doesn't want to do that. They know that they have a deeper team than the Knicks. They just want to wear them out over the course of this series, and whether that's in between games or whether that's over the long haul, I think Indiana, to your point, is going to go to the NBA Finals because the Knicks are just going to run out of gas at some point, whether it's in Game 5 or Game 6. And if it makes it to Game 7, we'll see a very, very tired Knicks team, even with the home crowd, kind of failing to make those big-time shots, and Indiana will go to the Finals. So you're right about that, but I do think that if the Knicks are going to win a game, it's going to be in front of their home crowd. It's going to be here tonight, and they have an opportunity to tie this series up and make some of those New Yorkers believe a little bit more than they did after that Monday night game or that Game 1 collapse.
Yeah, and certainly the Knicks can win a game in Indiana, but if they lose tonight, it's not going to feel very optimistic. By the way, look at Jalen Brunson's point total tonight, 29.5. My gosh, that's really high. Who do you think goes off tonight or not in the group between New York and Indiana? We got 20 seconds. Sorry, Carl.
Yeah, I take the under on Jalen Brunson, and I actually take the over on Pascal Siakam, who was quiet in game number 1. Look for him to be a little bit more aggressive in game 2.
All right, Carlin, enjoy the games. Happy Memorial Day. We'll talk next week. Thanks again.
Likewise. Take care.
We'll be right back.
We salute the brave and courageous women and men serving in the United States military, protecting our freedom. Please take time this Memorial Day weekend to honor the memory and sacrifice of our military veterans and their loving families, and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in their service to our nation.
Boston knew they were in trouble, Tom, but the most important thing is they fed off of their crowd, and in that third quarter, when Boston could have made a run, the Knicks just put that one last run together to put the game away.
So it was good to see them, to round this all together, good to see them finally put all the pieces in place to close out the series and say, yes, we are playing our best basketball, because that's what they're going to need against the Pacers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
If you believe he should be in the Hall of Fame, there's, let's let him wait another 2 years. Wait, he's already dead at this point. Like, what are you waiting for? Another 2 to 3 years. He's either in or he's out. And sometimes you look at that too, Tom, it's like you can't tell, the history of Major League Baseball without Pete Rose.
Frankly, the writers have some standard that they want to hold players to, which seems to fluctuate on a player-to-player basis. So he should be in the Hall of Fame, but I'm not sure how quickly he'll get there.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
As we just mentioned, Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA is this evening, 8 o'clock Eastern, as the Indiana Pacers take on the New York Knicks. Indiana leads the series 1-0. We'll have a preview of that and also discuss what the Knicks are thinking going into Game 2. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, the Indiana Pacers couldn't have asked for more in Game 1. Coming back to winning in the way that they did, just surging on confidence right now. So there's two schools of thought. Either Indiana can put the Knicks to bed tonight by winning another game on the road, or are they simply satisfied with just taking 1 out of 2, headed back to Indianapolis? Here's head coach Rick Carlisle, Pascal Siakam, and TJ McConnell of the Pacers as they get ready for tonight's game.
I'm very glad we won. A lot of things had to go our way, but our guys hung in and gave themselves a chance. And now, after an experience like that, you've got to be able to wipe it, move on, and get ready for the next battle. I mean, these are all going to be epic battles. They're going to be physical. There's going to be a lot going on, and we're going to have to be ready.
It's a long series, and we know that, and we got to focus one game at a time. And for me, I just try to tell the guys, stay level-headed and taking one game at a time, one day at a time. There's going to be games every other day, so it's going to be, it's not going to be, a smooth ride. So we gotta be ready for that, brace for anything that's coming, and be ready. So that's the message. Like it doesn't really matter if we get recognition or not. That's not our focus. Our focus is on us, and knowing that we're playing against a really talented team, and we got to be ready.
I mean, it's stuff that I talked about. Just trying to make things more difficult for Jalen, and maybe not as much. We got to be better on the boards and stuff like that we've already talked about. But it's more of a collective thing, just coming together and being more tied together, especially when they go on their runs.
Tonight's game more about how the Knicks respond after being down in this series now by a game, but they can change the series completely just by simply winning tonight. But can they do it the same way that they've been doing it throughout the playoffs and the regular season? It seems like Indiana poses a different challenge. Here's head coach Tom Thibodeau on some potential changes coming for Game 2.
Well, you look at everything. Everything's always on the table. You do what you think gives you the best chance to win. You also need players that are effective with the bench unit, and then what starters are you going to play with the bench unit? So I think it's twofold. How does it all work together?
How do you think you guys have, handled the speed that they had? They get out and run.
Yeah, and that's their strength. I think and when you look at our fast break points on the season and the playoffs, I think people overlook that. So we scored 135 points. That should be more than enough, right? So we got to lock into what we can do better defensively.
I think win or lose, it's short-term memory, and you get ready for game 2, regardless. It could have been a blown out. We still got to get ready for game 2.
No, I mean, energy's fine. Energy's pretty high. I think vibes good. I think it's just, just owning up to, not finishing strong. But other than that, in the beginning, they started off making every shot, and then we kind of, figured it out, got better, strong fourth quarter start. So it's just like them last 5 minutes, and learning from it and just owning up to it and knowing we got to do better. So it's not really crazy. Nothing to, obviously we want that game back, but, it's a 7-game series. So it's just come out, be better, play whole 48 minutes next game.
Meanwhile, if you're thinking of still backing the Knicks to take the series, this is probably the time to do it. They've gone from the favorite to the dog pretty quickly after losing game 1. A little plus action there. If somehow the Knicks are able to capture this one, maybe take one game in Indiana, all of a sudden, maybe we'd be looking at a 6 or 7 game series. And as we know, game 7 would be in Madison Square Garden, and the Knicks potentially would be favorites against the Indiana Pacers All right, let's take a quick timeout here on the show. When we come back next, it's time to bring in Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. We'll get into the latest cease and desist going on across the country for some illegal offshore sports books. Those of you who are operating with your iPhone or Android and want to watch our show streaming, it's very easy to do. Just download the SportsGrid app. Just take out your phone, scan that QR code, and we've updated the app so it is basically lag-free, completely new and updated, and I would recommend it. It's free. We'll be right back with Sam after this.
We salute the brave and courageous women and men serving in the United States military, protecting our freedom. Please take time this Memorial Day weekend to honor the memory and sacrifice of our military veterans and their loving families, and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in their service to our nation.
I'm not saying this thing is scripted, but damn it, they put those 2 teams on the first weekend of the basketball season for a reason, because they were expecting some kind of fireworks. They got it. Did Angela Reese overreact? Probably. Did Caitlin Clark have to stare it down? Probably not. There's enough blame to go both sides. But guess who doesn't care? That's the WNBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The Tigers, 31-17, Matt, on the season. They've got the best pitching in baseball, but don't look now. The Twins are now on their heels at 26-21.
The best hitters can't stay healthy. We obviously saw a situation last week where 2 of those guys got hurt on the same play. So that's the Twins, and I think Twins fans, I'm up in Twins country. Twins fans know that up here, and you're kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
You are a Pirates fan. I don't think you've got a reason good enough for me to be wearing Mets stuff when the Mets are playing the Pirates right now. I don't think I'm gonna go, okay, I see it at the end of your explanation.
I'm gonna put it on all the Mets fans. The Pirates won 2 in a row. Fired the manager over the weekend. A new era of Pirates baseball has begun.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on this Friday ahead of the Memorial Day weekend. Let's see if we can get down with some big stories in the sports betting world. Over at Legal Sports Report, got some great columns up, news stories about sports betting. A couple are up now. Let's get to them with Sam McQuillan from LSR. Sam, great to have you back here on NewsWire ahead of this holiday weekend. Let's dive right in because we always have limited time here. We'll start off with the state of Tennessee. And in this case, it's targeting offshore sports books. This has been going on for years across the country. Sam, I mean, dare I say, in the last year, it does feel like these cease and desists are actually working. I don't know why all of a sudden they seem to be working now. For years and years, they had to chase down these sportsbook operators outside of the country, right? Like they couldn't come back in the country and they were all like threatened. But I mean, once these letters go out, it seems like they're following the rules here.
Yeah, no, great observation by you, Craig. Over the past year, we've seen states like Tennessee, states like Michigan really galvanize their efforts in terms of cracking down on these offshore sports betting operators, which, to your point, they're not new to this country. They've been here for a long, long time. Since the proliferation of legal sports betting, once PASPA was overturned, that really brought to the light more sports betting conversations that were going on. I think a lot of lawmakers in particular might not have been keen to what was going on behind the scenes. But now you have Tennessee, which has sent their fifth cease and desist letter over the past just couple of months to an offshore sports betting operator. Now they've targeted Bet Online, which is a Panama-based sports book. It's a website you can access in pretty much any state where you just go online, you bet. There's no age requirement. They certainly don't pay any taxes to the state of Tennessee. They don't pay the $750,000 license fee to the state either. There's no restrictions on the bet types. There's no actual player protections to ensure that people are actually getting paid out. So Tennessee's now cracking down on yet another offshore sports book. They face about a $50,000 fine. Bet Online was actually just targeted in Michigan, where it did leave after a cease and desist. And Michigan has sent over 40 of these letters now to a bunch of these different online sports books. And to your question of why it's taken so long, for a lot of the years, there's been this conversation that the states don't have the resources to enforce these cease and desists. Right. Once they go out, if a company that's not following the law just chooses to keep not following the law, it's kind of like, okay, where do we go from here? Where's the enforcement? But to your point, the offshore sports books have kind of waved the white flag and say, okay, we don't think it's worth it to keep operating here. For a long time, people have speculated, if the states can't enforce it, then would the federal authorities step in? And we have definitely not seen the federal government really move in any kind of direction when it comes to cracking down on illegal gambling really at all, especially with offshore sports betting. The limited stuff we see is them maybe cracking down on like a mob ring or something like that,
right?
That would get more headlines, obviously. And the fact that we had 40 offshore receiving cease and desists in Michigan in this past year, this goes to show you how big this environment is. There's tons of these websites out there. They pop up every day. But really interesting now that we've seen them start to leave these states. We've seen it pour over into other states. Massachusetts has been very vocal about wanting to do the same thing. So it seems kind of like when one state does it and has success, then the others say, oh, maybe we should do that. And it seems to be relatively easy for them to send out these letters. Tennessee's also been the most vocal, dare I say, state in addressing prediction markets, which are technically not offshore sports books. They're technically not sports books, depending on who you ask. They're operating legally, depending on who you ask. They've asked the CFTC to step in and say, hey, this is sports betting. You should be licensed. You can't skirt rules this way. CFTC, of course, has not said anything on this front, but notable that Tennessee was the most vocal on that front and has now been cracking down on offshores again. And we'll probably see this continue. I'm sure this will be another theme of this year. It seems like low-hanging fruit for the states to go after and really get an accomplishment done.
Yeah, thus far, this is the year of discussing the prediction markets and whether or not they'll survive or not. I don't think there's any question about that. Okay, another article over at Legal Sports Report, sweepstakes. I mean, this is another hot topic this season, is discussing whether or not they are going to survive in the casinos. There's a social gaming leadership alliance that has emerged, I'm guessing, to try and keep them around. Sam, you tell us more?
Yeah, certainly. We've seen these new organizations pop up. Sort of a similar topic we were just talking about. Not quite offshore sports betting, not quite prediction markets, but another form of quasi-regulated gaming that doesn't want to be regulated as gaming. It's these sweepstakes style casino and sports betting games that have emerged in pretty much all 50 states. So they're offering a product that looks like sports betting, looks like online blackjack, but because they have some sort of option or way where you can play for free. They're trying to use the sweepstakes law to not technically be regulated as gaming. So states have kind of taken an issue with that and said, I think it's about 12 now that have passed or at least introduced bills that would declare these games as illegal gambling, saying they're skirting the laws, using a loophole. And in the response, you've seen new organizations pop up. VGW, which is a huge brand in this space, which owns and operates a bunch of different free-to-play casino sites where you also can pay money. That's how they make a majority of their money, is people paying on these games. They just started this new organization called the Social Gaming Leadership Alliance. They're saying to ensure that stakeholders understand the growing industry, including free-to-play, casino-themed games, and leverage the promotions properly. This comes as, they have another organization out there which has kind of tried to do the same thing and has not been as successful. This time, this group will be headed by a former South Carolina Congressman, Jeff Duncan. So that's pretty notable that you're having a former lawmaker involved. At least bring some sort of legitimacy to this growing effort. And it's a little different than offshore sports betting, where they are trying to be deemed legal, but deemed legal as a different industry. And we've certainly seen a lot of money thrown at this. It's one of these big exploding new sectors in the quasi-regulated sports betting market, along with prediction markets, along with events contracts and fantasy sports we talked about all last year. So who knows, at this time next year, we could be talking about a totally new type of way for sports betting to exist without technically being called sports betting. And they're certainly ramping their efforts up this legislative season, while a bunch of states consider these different bills and try to ban them in their own ways. So this is a sign that this is not going to go away anytime soon. But again, it could be one of those state by state steps where one at a time, they kind of get picked off the map.
All right. Now, for a period of time, we've seen some of the non-sports wagering operators like Underdog and Prize Picks take a little bit of a step back in terms of advertising, just to kind of see how the landscape would play out. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it does feel like the success of the prediction markets and their ability to stay around has sort of gotten some of these other companies, and in this case, Prize Picks, to sort of step up their efforts to say, hey, look, if they're not going anywhere, we're not going anywhere. And they've partnered up with the Houston Astros, Sam.
Yeah, you're 100% right about that timing, Craig. Before 2025, we saw companies like Prize Picks and Underdog pull back some of their advertising that they had just done at a really high level, almost similar to what we saw when sports betting first became legal in a lot of states, because it had success in markets like California, markets like Texas, which we'll talk about in a sec, where sports betting isn't legal, but these player prop style pick'em games where you select more or less on a player, very similar to an over-under, were popular. But then once prediction markets came out, it kind of took the spotlight away from the focus on fantasy sports companies like Prize Picks, companies like Underdog. And now Prize Picks, interestingly enough, has signed a deal with its third MLB team in the past month. It's now partnered with the Houston Astros and just did a deal with the Giants and did a deal with the Padres earlier. But it's pretty interesting to see like a company that not too long ago we were talking about, is this legal? Are states going to say it's legal? Are leagues going to come out and say, we're only going to partner with sports books? Now you have a third MLB team signed with Prize Picks. The partnership is going to include signage around the stadium, in-stadium promos and activations. Really interesting too, a segment on Astros radio before the game, essentially, advertising the product, asking questions like, will this pitcher go over or under 6.5 strikeouts today, getting people more involved in marketing the product. And again, Texas is a state without legal sports betting. We're probably not going to have sports betting legalized in Texas for a very long time. So Prize Picks expanding their presence there.
All right. Have a great weekend, Sam. Thanks again.
Thanks. You too, Craig.
Buy or sell, Devers will be traded this season. Let's also not forget that there's $300 million on the table due to Devers, which eliminates him from, what would you say, like 17 teams?
Oh, I would think more than 17, maybe 27. That's a joke. But how many teams could afford him?
All right, 5, 6. How he's needed a third baseman who can't play third base. You know, how do you deal with his attitude? He hasn't come off looking good at any of this. Whether you believe he should have anyway, he doesn't look good at this. Will he be traded? No, he won't be traded. The salary alone makes it highly unlikely. He's a great hitter. No doubt he can hit. But other than that, there's too many between the money and the attitude and no really position for him here. He's not getting dealt anytime soon.
Buy or sell, if the season ended today, Hunter Brown would win the American League Cy Young Award.
Hunter Brown has been fantastic. All right, the guy that Craig's teasing, by the way, is Tariq Skubal of the Detroit Tigers here, who's certainly right up there with them. Max Fried for the Yankees has had a fantastic season. They finally lost a start where he pitched in against Seattle the other day. They'd won every start. He's been fantastic. The season ended today. Would Hunter Brown win the American Cy Young Award? I certainly couldn't argue it if he did. That being said, he's going up against Skubal, who won it last year, going up against Fried of the Yankees. My guess is he would, that he'll need a year. You understand what I'm saying? He needs a year before he can get that kind of recognition if he's tied with somebody. If he's clearly ahead, then I think he would win here. But as of right now, would he win it? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it would be probably Max Fried.
Fantasy Sports Today. Weekends starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Memorial Day weekend going to be full of Stanley Cup hockey. Not many days off in between these series. In fact, they're headed back to Sunrise tomorrow after the Panthers dismantled the Carolina Hurricanes. Let's bring in Josh Inglis of Covers to get to the latest in the Stanley Cup, see who he likes in the game tonight in the West, and see if the East is over. Josh, great to have you here on NewsWire for the first time. Thanks for making the time.
I appreciate it. And yes, the East is over. Florida is that good.
Yeah. I would figure so. I mean, Josh, I live in South Florida, by the way, and we rarely get blessed with this sort of success with any of our teams here, Like every once in a while we get like a LeBron, Wade, and Bosch deal or, Dan Marino in the past. But I mean, these Panthers, Dynasty is strong. They still got to win this one too. But I don't know, Josh. They look as dominant as any team in the National Hockey League. I know some people thought that they sleptwalked through a few games during the regular season, but as soon as they added Brad Marchand, all of a sudden, this team just took off 5-0 yesterday against the team that was favored to win the Cup.
5-0 yesterday. They sent everybody rally packing early. Game 1, 5-2. They sent everybody packing and rally. Game 7 in Toronto. They shut down that Scotiabank Arena, sent everybody packing, people spending thousands of dollars on tickets, leaving in the third period. Game 5 in Toronto. All Florida has done in the last 4 road games has scored 20 goals and sending everybody packing before the end of the game. I've never seen anything like it. Florida right now, you're talking about a dynasty. I don't even think they need to win a cup right now to be labeled as maybe the best lineup in hockey of my generation. I think it's better than the Tampa Bay lineup. I think it's better than the Marchand, Patrice Bergeron lineup in Boston. I mean, all these guys are coming from the same division. Keep in mind that too. Florida right now is an absolute juggernaut. No one can beat them. I think they held Carolina to under 1 full expected goal last night, which is the only game in the playoffs that's been like that. Carolina had chances in game 1. I really thought Carolina could get a couple goals. I was on the over. It's tough to lose the over when the score is 5-0, but you just saw Carolina quit. And that's what Florida does. The longer the series goes, the more advantage that this heavy hitting, 4-line running, Bobrovsky saving. I mean, even their defense is dangerous. There's just no weakness. And you got Paul Maurice behind the bench. This is about as perfect a team as you can make. And they're talking about Sam Bennett making $10 million a year. That's how important the difference is between regular season and playoff hockey is. Sam Bennett, 51 points in the regular season, and you're going to give him $10 million if he leaves Florida in another market. It's just, his value is incredible. He's the number 2 for Conn Smythe odds behind Bob right now.
Yeah, no, the games have been blowouts. I mean, not even close. I mean, that's what's stunning here. So, all right, let's shift over to the West, because if there's one team that does know how to beat the Panthers, let's give them the credit. It is Edmonton. I mean, they lost some close games in the finals last year and then came back to make it an incredible series. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised that the Oilers are simply right there in the West. Now, the Stars are like a coin flip game tonight. I'm seeing minus 118. I don't know if you see it any differently on the money line. Oilers -2, total of 6.5. I'm guessing this is a must-win for Dallas, right? Because Edmonton has been through thick and thin the last couple of years. If they go up 2-0, hard to see them falling apart in the final 5 games.
Yeah, you see a kind of a 10-point adjustment on the money line after losing game 1 for the home team. You saw it in Carolina yesterday too. So Dallas closed -125 in game 1. Edmonton was rock solid. Edmonton was absolutely rock solid in 40 minutes. And then let's be honest, what happened in the third period is not something that's probable. 3 straight penalties. Okay, that's odd to begin with. But then scoring on 3 straight penalties is even more uncharacteristic of anything. So I do like Edmonton tonight, -105. I think you can even add like Corey Perry under 0.5 points to get a little negative correlation, really boost that odds up to 220. Perry's playing on the 4th line, paying 8 to 10 minutes. The only reason he has a point prop right now is because he is playing power play 1, net front. He's not touching the puck a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if Edmonton moved away from him and went back to Zach Hyman on that top line. So he might not have any role. So he's kind of a guy I'm waiting to see if they do skate, if they do run the power plays today, if he is. And then I'm going to be adding a lot of Corey Perry under points to a lot of other things I'm doing on this game. Edmonton side, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins for an assist at +150 is something I'm interested in. He's been great on that top line. And I think Edmonton, when they're down like this, they're just saying, hey, 97, just kind of, you have to do it. Nobody in hockey can step up their game like McDavid. Draisaitl doesn't even have that gear. He's been great, but it's not McDavid's gear. So anybody riding shotgun with McDavid really helps, and RNH is the only guy, unless they bring up Hyman, on that first line that correlates with McDavid on PP1 and 5-on-5.
Do you like any of the goal scorers tonight at plus money here? I mean, simply put, after Draisaitl, Mikko Rattinen's giving you pretty good at +140, McDavid +145, and then everybody else here, Josh, on this board that we're showing is 2-1.
I'm staying away from Rantanen. I think everything with Rantanen's overpriced right now. I mean, they're getting a lot of production from that first line, but let's not kind of throw under the bus Michael Granlund, who has 3 multi-point games over his last 5 games, and he's priced low for a point. He's +120 for a point, only because he's power play 2. But guess what? Power play 2 had 2 goals in that game in that third period. Miro Heiskanen is back to full health, and him and Thomas Harley are interchanging between power play 1 and power play 2. So it's like 1A and 1B situation. I think if you're looking for a goal somewhere, I think you do look at Granlund at 375. That's a pretty good price, 375 +400 for Granlund, which is the same price as Corey Perry, which makes no sense. Granlund's playing 20 minutes and Perry's playing 8 minutes. Doesn't make any sense. I think Granlund's kind of just been constantly undervalued in this series.
Josh, the Panthers are +125 to win it all. Can you make a case for anyone else?
Yes. No. I think I was looking at today because you're looking at 125. You're like, okay, I've been staring at this outright board for the entirety of the season. This is as short as we've seen. But think about it. Florida's going to win this series. When Florida wins this series, they're going to be on the road for either game 1 versus Dallas and Edmonton. They were -125 to open series versus Carolina, which now we're looking at it as a bad price. They were -180 versus Toronto. So somewhere in the middle, I think, is where it is. I think 10 points shorter for Edmonton, 10 points longer for Dallas. So somewhere in that -150. So you're getting +125 and basically them guaranteed to get to the Stanley Cup Finals, where you're going to see them at -150. So I think there's still a buy at +125. Nobody else, I think, at that price is where you want to go.
All right. Thanks, Josh. Have a great weekend.
I appreciate it. Cheers.
We salute the brave and courageous women and men serving in the United States military, protecting our freedom. Please take time this Memorial Day weekend to honor the memory and sacrifice of our military veterans and their loving families, and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in their service to our nation.
I'm not saying this thing is scripted, but damn it, they put those two teams on the first weekend of the basketball season for a reason, because they were expecting some kind of fireworks. They got it. Did Angel Reese overreact? Probably. Did Caitlin Clark have to stare it down? Probably not. There's enough blame to go both sides. But guess who doesn't care? That's the WNBA.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
The Tigers, 31-17, Matt, on the season. They've got the best pitching in baseball, but don't look now. The Twins are now on their heels at 26-21.
The best hitters can't stay healthy. We obviously saw a situation last week where two of those guys got hurt on the same play. So that's the Twins, and I think Twins fans, I'm up in Twins country. Twins fans know that up here, and you're kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
You are a Pirates fan. I don't think you've got a reason good enough for me to be wearing Met stuff when the Mets are playing the Pirates right now. I don't think I'm gonna go, okay, I see it at the end of your explanation.
I'm going to put it on Vinny. I'm going to put it on all the Mets fans. The Pirates won 2 in a row. Fired the manager over the weekend. A new era of Pirates baseball has begun.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, let's get the barbecue fired up here for Memorial Day on Monday. Quick programming note before we get to some last licks. We will have no show Monday for Memorial Day here on SportsGrid. So the next time you'll see us back here on NewsWire will be Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. Okay, now that being said, let's wrap up today's show and our week of shows with some last licks. The always outspoken Charles Barkley made his way to a National Hockey League broadcast somehow last night. Not really sure how or why or when, but hey, look, it's Barkley. So Barkley was kind of talking on the broadcast and, mentioning how he was very disappointed that the Toronto Maple Leafs did not come through. It sounds like he must have made a bet. Well, indeed, he did. And Barkley went on to comment that not only does he have a betting account, which everyone knows that he's a gambler. He's talked about betting and gambling millions of dollars in casinos and everything else. Also took the time to mention that not only is he betting on FanDuel, but he has a limit there and has to use a bookie in order to place the bigger bets. You don't generally hear that from anybody these days. It seems like we're all in the legal market. But again, some people live in places that operate in the illegal market. If Barkley, for example, went back to his alma mater in Auburn, he can't bet. It's in Alabama. He'd have to find a bookie. So needless to say, good to know from Sir Charles, he not only has an account at FanDuel, but he's also using a guy or a girl, a bookie. Fair enough. Darren Ruff, you ever heard of him? Former big league player, first baseman, outfielder, played on a number of different teams. Anybody who played Major League Baseball is incredible, okay? It's impossible to make. So let's not crap all over Darren Ruff. He had a nice, without even looking at it, I'm going to say he played 6-7 years in Major League Baseball. But unfortunately, Ruff had an issue when he played at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati as a member of the Milwaukee Brewers. In fact, he was running to catch a foul ball, nothing unusual about that, and ran into the tarp. Nothing unusual about that as well. We've seen this plenty of times. But at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, at the end of the tarp, they have the tarp roller, which is made of metal. And for some reason, this thing was protruding outside of the tarp. Now, Ruff's injury at the time didn't look all that serious. In fact, if you go back and look at the video, you can kind of see that he was hurt, came out of the game, but it ended up costing him his career. So this is something that's setting a trend, I think, that we could potentially see in the future if it works. Darren Ruff has decided to sue the Cincinnati Reds and Great American Ballpark for having that thing out there too much. In fact, if you may remember, there was a Yankees player several years ago that also had an issue. I believe it was in Chicago, ran into it as well and ended up, settling or having something happen there. But Ruff played a long time in the big leagues and says that his career was cut short. Well, will there be a settlement? I think so. Seems to be fair. But for the time being, Ruff has said that his career ended thanks to a tarp in Cincinnati, which you simply don't see all that often. Dustin Fowler, thank you. Yes, you remember that? It was in Chicago, right? I remember that he ran into, yeah, he ran into something there. It wasn't, no, it was, the fire alarm or something. His knee hit the alarm or something like that. Okay, now this is big news for those of you who live in Las Vegas, or maybe you use a proxy service of some kind here. We're not like throwing all this love at Circa Sportsbook. This is not what this is about. But what it is about is telling you that if you're participating in the Circa Sports $1 million survivor pool, it is no longer $1 million. It is now $6 million guaranteed if you win. Circa Survivor is up to 15 million, so that's a combined $21 million, which is the most ever that I can ever recall in Las Vegas. So the Circa Sports Millions is you picking 5 games a week. Okay, this has been around for a long time, but the Survivor pool, folks, is $15 million this season. If you are the last one standing at the end of the year, all you have to do is pick a team to win every week, and you can win $15 million. You know why you can't win? Because it's impossible. It's the NFL. That's why. In fact, if you get to the close to the end and there's a bunch of people still left, usually you chop it up, take your 3-4 million and go home. But that's the most money that will ever pay out, thanks to Circa out in Las Vegas. I love those contests, by the way. We bring in Brady Cannon usually to talk about the contest picks. He does a contest show here on SportsGrid as well. Anyway, we'll get to that in 3 months. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks again to Josh for coming on the show, talking some hockey with us. In addition, Carlin Gay and Sam McQuillan. Those were our guests here on the show. We got Smiley Kaufman coming up next for all Coast to Coast, 3 o'clock Eastern. This is our schedule the rest of the day. Game time decisions in game live. And then Gabe on Sports Rage tonight, no doubt, has some coverage of the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA. Thanks again to Luke. And for Frank, I'm Craig. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. See you back here next Tuesday.
The brave and courageous women and men serving in the United States military, protecting our freedom. Please take time this Memorial Day weekend to honor the memory and sacrifice of our military veterans and their loving families, and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in their service to our nation.
Boston knew they were in trouble, Tom, but the most important thing is they fed off of their crowd, and in that third quarter, when Boston could have made a run, the Knicks just put that one last run together to put the game away.
So it was good to see them, to round this all together, good to see them finally put all the pieces in place to close out the series and say, yes, we are playing our best basketball, because that's what they're going to need against the Pacers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
If you believe he should be in the Hall of Fame, there's, let's let him wait another 2 years. Wait, he's already dead at this point. Like, what are you waiting for? Another 2 to 3 years. He's either in or he's out. And sometimes you look at that too, Tom, it's like you can't tell, the history of Major League Baseball without Pete Rose.
Frankly, the writers have some standard that they want to hold players to, which seems to fluctuate on a player-to-player basis. So he should be in the Hall of Fame, but I'm not sure how quickly he'll get there.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.